10 o'clock here, so we're going to get started. Thanks for joining us, everyone, for this week's edition of the Long Coffee Break. I'm Jordan Weiss, your host today. Thanks for joining us on this snowy day. We got a special guest with us today, Nate Sullivan with Seeley International is going to talk to us about indirect, direct Evap coolers. And at this point, I'll send it over to Seeley or Nate to let us know about his product offering.
Great. Thanks, Jordan. So welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Nate Sullivan, and I'm a sales and applications engineer with Seeley here in Denver. And today we're going to be discussing energy savings by cooling below the wet bulb with Seeley's Climate Wizard Indirect Evaporative Coolers. So we can set the stage here by looking at a psychrometric chart using the design conditions of Denver 9560. And in this example, we'll show two types of processes: direct evaporative or adiabatic cooling, and indirect evaporative, also known as sensible cooling. So direct evaporative or adiabatic cooling follows the constant enthalpy line right here. Starting at 9560, we can follow this line, and we're able to get to a temperature of around 65 degrees and 80% relative humidity. So this is the typical performance of a swamp cooler. It's very suitable for warehouses, industrial spaces, and many residential applications as well. We sell a lot of direct evaporative units as well under the name BreezeAir, but today we're going to be focusing more on our indirect Climate Wizard evaporative units. So again, operating at this 9560 condition in Denver, we can provide sensible cooling down to about 59 degrees, which is notably 1 degree below the wet bulb. Additionally, some of our units have a supercool feature where we can achieve even lower temperatures. So in this case, we'd be able to cool to around 48 degrees with that supercool section. And this option involves a direct evaporative pad that can be cycled on and off to regulate the cooling and humidity as needed. So here we have our Climate Wizard product lineup. We offer three models: the CWH15, the CW80, and the CW3. So the CWH15 and 80 units are catered to commercial and industrial spaces generally. So the CWH15 is rated up to 3,400 CFM. We actually manufacture that on site here in Denver. And in contrast, the CW80 delivers up to around 18,000 CFM. So both of these units come with a supercool option, which features that direct evaporative pad for additional cooling. We also have the CW3, which is a residential light commercial unit. It utilizes similar technology, but this unit is always indirect direct, so it kind of always has that supercool section. And then both the CW80 and CW3 units are manufactured in Australia, where the Seeley headquarters is based. So this is kind of the heart of our cooling technology. It's the heat exchanger, which we call the core. It's made up of alternating wet and dry sheets that facilitate this indirect evaporative cooling. So hot outdoor air is brought in through the dry channels, and it's indirectly cooled. And then roughly 55% of this air is directed into the space, while 45% of that air is directed back into the wet channels of the heat exchanger and exhausted through the top as warm, moist air. So this is the design that enables us to achieve temperatures below the wet bulb. And if we move on here, we can see some photos of our patented core technology. So in the upper right, we have a close-up of the wet and dry channels. The wet channels have what we call a frocking, and this allows the wet channels to get fully saturated with water, which allows for maximum heat transfer and allows us to deliver the highest cooling capacity possible. So each of these units is about 2 feet wide by 2 feet deep and a little less than 3 feet tall. And each of them can generally handle around 800 CFM. And as you can see, again, the hot outdoor air is brought in through this side. The dry conditioned air comes out the backside here where we can't see. And then that warm exhaust air comes out the top, and this is where the water is input into the core. So our CWH15 units contain 3 cores each, and our CW80 units contain 16 cores each. So here's a cross section of our Denver-made CWH15. So these units feature variable speed outdoor air fans, MERV filters, an advanced water distribution system for efficient operation. We've also implemented some other features such as conductivity probes and chlorinators to maintain water quality and prevent bacterial growth. Monitoring water quality allows the Climate Wizard units to use less water annually than traditional evaporative coolers. It also keeps units functioning at their highest capacity. So this is a blow-through design. So outside air is brought in through the right side via a backwards incline fan, and it's pushed through the saturated cores here, and then indirectly cooled. And then the air is conditioned further by this direct evaporative pad. So this is a supercool unit. And this pad can be cycled on and off as needed. And then 55% of the air is brought in to the space, and then 45% is exhausted through the top using a back pressure. Here's our CW80. This is our larger unit, rated up to 18,000 CFM. It has 16 heat exchange cores and is roughly based on the same principles as the smaller CWH15. So it's a draw-through design with a set of supply fans right here and a set of exhaust fans up here. So air's pulled through 16 cores. There's 8 on each side, as you can see here. And again, 55% of the air is pulled into the space via the 2 supply fans, and 45% is exhausted through the top via those 4 exhaust fans. So this unit is, again, also available as a supercool unit, and you can also have it with high or standard capacity fans. So these units are made in Australia, and they're about the size of a shipping container, as you can see here with this silhouette for scale. And yeah, so here is some photos of a CW80 install we did at Regis Jesuit High School. So this was about a 10,000 square foot space, and it originally only had heating and ventilation. But we installed one CW80 supercool unit in July of 2019. So it's an older unit, so it was rated at 13,500 CFM. And with this install, we actually ran some field tests and were able to achieve a real-life EER of 58. So here's another psychrometric chart showing the conditions at Regis Jesuit. So again, we have that 9562 ambient condition, and using only sensible cooling, we were able to achieve a supply temperature of 60 degrees. So that's actually 2 degrees below the wet bulb. This is a supercool unit, but at the time we tested, they did not have the direct evaporative pad turned on. If it were turned on, we theoretically would have been able to achieve a supply air temperature of 54 degrees, which is about the same as what a DX system would supply. And then up here, you can kind of see our calculations and how we arrived at that EER 58.5. So here's another CW80 install we did. This one called for 24 CW80 units, or 432,000 CFM. And this was for Constellation Brands. I'm sure everyone's familiar with Corona, Modelo, Pacifico. All those beers are brewed by CBI, and this is one of their breweries. And it was initially, actually, this was a 12-unit install, but they were extremely satisfied with the job, and they opted to buy 12 more for the same factory. We're actually working on another deal with them right now for 21 80s in Veracruz. So it's safe to say they're a very satisfied customer. And here's a different application, Treasury Wines in South Australia. So this is called for 24 CW80S units, again, around 432,000 CFM. So this is actually a cast call, and they needed it to be temperature and humidity controlled to promote repeatable wine maturation. By controlling the humidity, they're able to minimize the angel share or evaporation of wine from the barrels, saving them thousands of gallons of wine a year and saving them profit. It also saved them around $562,000 a year just on electricity, reduced the demand requirements from 465 with a refrigerated system to approximately 240 kilowatts. And with our units, there's no skilled refrigeration tech labor needed to maintain and service these units. You can simply clean the filters in the unit and they're good to go. So here's a more local application. So this is a large Toyota and Chevy dealership in Roseville, California. And they went through about a $6 million energy retrofit on 3 different dealerships. And this called for 51 CWH15 units. So those are our Denver-made units for 118,800 CFM installed on multiple buildings in this auto group. And they were there to replace the RTUs they previously had. And with the units combined with solar panels, LED lighting, and a cool reflective roof, they were able to save 87% on energy and achieved an ROI in only 2 years for their Seeley, their 51 Seeley units. And then, yeah, so this is our new CW hybrid unit. So this unit's brand new, and we're actually rolling it out in California as we speak. It's basically a CW3 combined with a heat pump on the left side here. You can see that CW3, that indirect direct, or an IDEC as we call it. And then on the right side, we have a heat pump with return and exhaust. And then in the middle here, that's where we have the supply. So here's an airflow diagram of the CW hybrid unit. This shows the hybrid cooling mode. So you have air coming in through the direct side, then you have return air cooled farther by the DX system. So this mode would only be ran around 15% of the time, at least in California, 15% of hours where Evaporative cooling can only achieve a certain temperature, so the DX section turns on to help the unit achieve that desired set point. But it can also run in an economizing ventilation mode as well as a heating mode. So like I said, we're rolling this out in California right now, um, but we're also working on Salt Lake City and Utah under the understanding that some type of booster heat, whether it be a duct heater or electric strip heat, will need to be added. This is just because about 1/3 of the heating hours in Utah are below freezing. So the heat pump will need some additional support at those temperatures to achieve some comfort conditions in the space. And that kind of brings me to the end of our presentation. But if you need any other information on the Climate Wizards, feel free to click on either of these links to the Seeley website. We have plenty more case studies with a ton of different applications um, on the site. And if you have any questions for me, feel free to reach out. I appreciate your attention and your attendance. And yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it, Nate. It's exciting stuff going on over at Seeley. So as always, if anyone needs anything, please reach out to your long sales engineer. They can get you some more information on the product and go over kind of some of the new rollouts that are happening with the new product that Nate mentioned earlier. So this comes to the time where we give away our prizes. Today's winner is going to be Ian Sweat with Envision. Please reach out to your long sales engineer, Ian, and he can get with you. I think that's John. He can get with you on your prizes that you guys have. But I want to thank everybody for joining us this week. Please join us next week when John Stump goes over Innovent and air source heat pumps. So with all the electrification stuff that's going on in Denver, something good to tune in. So I appreciate everybody's attendance and stay safe out there.